Fasten your seatbelts and check out these mighty tidbits of useful knowledge. Something here might save your life someday, or just break the ice at an important gathering. You'll most likely steer away from the Comic Sans font if you're typing a formal document. It looks not serious enough. No wonder, the designer who created it was inspired by several comic books he had in his office. Canada has more lakes than the rest of the world combined. Recent studies show that there can be as many as 2 million lakes in this country. The original Superman from comic books didn't fly. He leaped from one tall building to another in a single bound. But animators who were working on a Superman animated series in the 1940s complained the whole leaping thing would look silly on the screen. That's how Superman got his superpower of flying through the air. Just 20% of laughter is caused by jokes and funny situations. The rest is people reacting to questions like "How are you doing?" and regular statements. It helps to form social bonds. People who laugh together get closer. Wrigley's Juicy Fruit Chewing Gum was the very first product to have a barcode. It happened more than 40 years ago. Sea otters, especially moms and their pups, sleep holding each other's hand not to drift apart. If a sea otter doesn't have anything to hold on to, it just wraps itself in kelp. We humans are just one of the world's 8.7 million of the estimated species. This number includes 611,000 mushroom, mold, and other fungi species, 289,000 plant species, 7.8 million of animal species. You get the idea. Oh, and researchers didn't even try to count the number of bacteria on Earth. Earth is rotating at a breakneck speed. That's why an object will go a teeny tiny bit further if you throw it to the west. The mountains on Venus are covered with a snow-like substance that looks like snow. But the temperatures on the planet are scorching, and no snow can exist there. The frost is actually metallic. The world's ocean's deepest levels are swarming with the creepiest creatures – giant tube worms, goblin sharks, viperfish with terrifyingly long teeth. But one of the strangest living beings down there is probably the barreleye. It's a massive fish with an absolutely transparent head. So you can see what he's thinking? There are more trees on our planet than stars in the Milky Way. While our home galaxy can boast of from 100 to 400 billion stars, the number of trees on Earth exceeds 3 trillion. Pluto was discovered in 1930 and lost its planetary status in 2006. Within this rather long time, it didn't even manage to make a full orbit around the Sun. The former planet needs 248 Earth years to complete its orbit. Showers are famous for being able to spark creativity. When you're taking a warm shower, you usually feel relaxed and happy. Your dopamine levels grow higher, increasing the chances to get excellent ideas. Saudi Arabia imports its camels from Australia. This country originally imported camels to transport heavy loads. After the work was done, animals were let loose. It caused an impressive spike in their population. The hashtag symbol has an official name, Octothorpe. It's a made-up word that was created in the same place where the telephone came from, Bell Laboratories. Some scientists are pretty sure that dinosaurs once lived on all continents. Yep, even in Antarctica. Then why don't we find dinosaur bones all over the planet? Because, in some places, soil and weather conditions help to fossilize the remains. In others, they simply decomposed. Talking about dinos, there could be many more species than people think. Their bones were simply too small to be preserved for millions of years. The Sun weighs 330,000 times as much as our planet. It's so ginormous that you could fit Earth inside the star 1,300,000 times. And how about this? The Sun contains 99.85% of all the mass in our solar system. 10 human parts have only 3 letters in their name: rib, jaw, eye, lip, toe, ear, gum, arm, hip, and leg. Boy, talk about persistence. There was an astronaut named Don Lind who waited for 19 years before he finally flew into space. The original mission he had been selected for was canceled, so he remained on the bench as a backup for other astronauts. Only in 1985, the persistent scientist finally got to fly on the space shuttle. The longest wedding veil ever spread for the length of more than 63 football fields. The woman from Cyprus, who was wearing the mind-boggling wedding accessory, admitted that her goal had been to set a Guinness World Record. It had been her dream since childhood. Did you know that butterflies taste food with their feet? Because their taste sensors are there. If you were a butterfly, you would taste your pizza just by standing on it. Well, it goes against everything I've ever learned about life, but scientists claim sweat doesn't stink. The culprit is the bacteria on your skin. They break the sweat down, which causes an unpleasant odor. Octopuses lay from 20,000 to 100,000 eggs at a time. The mother octopus doesn't eat for half a year, protecting the eggs. When baby octopuses get born, they aren't bigger than rice grains. The human skeleton completely regenerates itself every 10 years. It's an ongoing process happening at the cellular level. That's why you always have a blend of old and new bones in your body. The human body hasn't stopped evolving yet. More and more people get born with an extra bone in their knees. This tiny bone is called a fibella. It's not something that hasn't existed before. In the 19th century, 18% of people had this bone. At the beginning of the 20th century, only 11% of humans were born with fibellas. But in 2018, about 39% of the world population had a fibella. By the way, scientists are still unsure about its purpose. I guess it's on a need-to-know basis. The inhabitants of Sentinel de las Bodegas in Spain literally live under a rock. People work, study, and go for a walk beneath a huge rocky outcropping. Their homes are built right into the side of the rock. It's illegal to own just one guinea pig in Switzerland. These animals are very social and can't stay on their own. It's bad for their health. The first jack-o'-lanterns were made from turnips or beets. Unlike rather cheerful orange pumpkins, their purpose was to scare unwanted guests off. Kids' curiosity is incredible. The average child asks up to 300 questions a day. That's one question every 5 minutes. Why questions are the most common. The Sahara Desert isn't an endless ocean of sand like many people imagine it. Only about 25% of its land fits this stereotype. The rest of the area is covered with gravel and littered with mountains and oases. There are twice more kangaroos than people in Australia. At last count, 40 million of animals versus 20 million of people. Another cool kangaroo fact, they can't hop backwards. Hummingbirds are tiny creatures, but one particular species, the bee hummingbird, breaks all records. The thing is so minuscule it often gets mistaken for an insect. The bird also weighs less than a dime. The most popular letter in the English language is E. It appears in 11% of all words. Second place belongs to the letter A. You can see it in 8.5% of all words. And the least common letter is Q. It's used only in 0.2% of words. Sharks don't need to use the alphabet, but they do have, on average, 15 rows of incredibly strong teeth. They're already born with a set of teeth and can protect themselves from the baby age. If they lose a tooth, another one replaces it in no time. Throughout its life, a shark can have 50,000 teeth. The good news is human teeth are as tough as sharks, and the enamel covering the top of them is the hardest part you can find in your whole body. Crocodiles can't stick their tongues out. They're attached to the roofs of the animals' mouths. But the closest relatives of crocodiles, alligators, can do it without any problems. Chinese broccoli, cabbage, cauliflower, collard greens, kale, kohlrabi, Brussels sprouts – all these vegetables come from the same plant species, BRASSICA OLERACEA. Yeah. Your eyes stay closed for 10% of your waking hours. It's the time you spend blinking. An adult person blinks on average 15 to 20 times a minute. Babies don't blink that much, only 2 of even fewer times a minute. Bees sometimes sting other bees. While protecting their hives, guard bees stay at the entrance and sniff the insects that want to come in. If they spot a rogue bee that doesn't belong to the hive, they will protect their nectar by biting and even stinging the intruder. Your sense of smell makes up 80% of your sense of taste. That's why, if your nose is stuffed, an onion, an orange, and a burger will taste the same to you. Cows don't have upper front teeth. Instead of them, there's a hard pad of skin. These animals also have molars in the top back parts of their mouth. If an astronaut needs to scratch their nose while wearing their spacesuit, there's a patch of Velcro inside the helmet. Your hair stores all crucial information about you: your DNA, which vitamins you lack, what minerals your body contains. All this can be learned from a hair strand analysis. Your hair is also incredibly strong. A full head of hair can hold up to 2 tons of weight without any follicles being pulled out. Squids and octopuses have beaks. They're made of keratin, just like your fingernails or birds' beaks. Blue whales can eat almost 500,000 calories at a time. That's 240 times the energy they need to catch krill. The sun's atmosphere stretches far beyond its visible surface. Our planet is within its reach. Exactly why solar wind gusts create such a breathtaking phenomenon as the northern and southern lights. The fire hydrant was first invented in the early 1800s. Unfortunately, its patent was lost in a fire when the patent office burned down. Only 100 years later, the fire hydrant was reinvented. A bolt of lightning can get 5 times hotter than the surface of the sun. So there. Earth could once have had 2 moons. The second one was tiny for a celestial body, just 750 miles across. But then the 2 moons crashed into each other, and the smaller one disappeared. There are 4 main facial expressions: angry, afraid or surprised, happy, and sad. But besides these basic ones, you can create up to 7,000 more. By the way, facial expressions that are genuine are more likely to be symmetrical. Arctic reindeer change their eye color from golden to blue in the winter. It's their way to adapt the sensitivity of their retina to the constant darkness. That's how they can still notice food and detect predators. Some of the tarantula species, which are some of the largest spiders on Earth, can live without food for more than 2 years. It's nearly impossible to distinguish koala fingerprints from human ones. Loopy, whirling ridges on koalas' fingers are almost identical to our own. Animals stay clear of power lines because those give off flashes of ultraviolet light. Plus, 35 different animal species are also sensitive to UV radiation. Among mammals, only apes and humans don't see ultraviolet rays. Streams sound as if they're babbling because air bubbles they contain get captured by water and burst. If you want to burn several calories by clicking a computer mouse, you'll have to do it 10 million times. No thanks. Nepal has the most mathematical flag in the world. The country even has a separate article in its constitution describing the steps of drawing the flag. Mysterious Pacific sleeper sharks live in an underwater volcano, Kavachi. It's not far from the Solomon Islands. Scientists have to send in robots to learn more about these creatures. People can't stand the heat and acidity of that environment. Dogs' nose prints can be used for their identification like fingerprints are used for humans. Each nose print is absolutely unique. People experience motion sickness because their brain gets contradictory information from different body parts. Let's say you are on a ship. Your internal ear feels the movement of the waves, but your eyes don't see it. The brain tries to combine these 2 separate feelings, but gets confused. Oh boy, time to find the railing, and fast. If you decided to build the Great Pyramid of Giza these days, it would cost you $1.2 billion. It's not that much if you compare it with the modern price of the Great Wall of China, around $42 billion. Your eye's cornea is the only body part that doesn't get any blood supply. It simply doesn't have any blood vessels. It takes oxygen straight from the air and gets its nutrition from tears and a special liquid your eyes produce. Horses can't breathe through their mouths. A flap of tissue blocks their throat at all times except when the animal's eating. It prevents the horse from inhaling food, but it also means the animal can only breathe through its nostrils. Woodpeckers can peck the wood up to 20 times per second and make 8,000 to 12,000 pecks per day. The chief coffee taster, who works for Costa Coffee, has his tongue insured for $13 million. His taste buds are as important for his profession as vocal cords for a singer. They allow him to pick out hundreds of flavors. The air humidity on Earth rarely falls below 30%, but the pressurized air on an airplane can have a mere 20% humidity. It's as dry as the air in the Sahara Desert. That's the reason your skin feels discomfort during and after a flight. Hippos have pink sweat, which isn't really sweat at all. It's an oily liquid that moisturizes and protects the skin rather than cools it down. This fluid also contains an antibiotic. Dust looks white against a black background and dark against a white one. But the truth is common dust is gray. Its particles' tiny size prevent you from seeing the real color. You only spot the difference if the specks are lighter or darker than the background. Velociraptors were the size of a modern turkey. They're the most bird-like dinosaurs people have ever discovered. Small and fast, they had a special bone in their wrists. It allowed them to fold their arms against their bodies like birds do. Vanta black is the darkest material in the world. It absorbs more than 99% of light and makes 3D objects look like 2D ones. The material is made of tiny hollow carbon tubes. On the area of less than half a square inch, there are 1,000 million nanotubes grown in a special laboratory. The giant panda's newborn baby weighs like a small cup of coffee and is tinier than a mouse. Panda moms are 900 times bigger than their little ones. When you lose weight, your fat cells don't just disappear into thin air, they become smaller. And vice versa, when you gain several additional pounds, your fat cells grow in size. The first oranges brought from Southeast Asia weren't orange, they were green, and it actually was a tangerine pomelo hybrid. Venus rotates so slowly that it takes the planet longer to finish one rotation than to complete its orbit. One day on Venus lasts longer than an entire year. Your stomach and esophagus are covered with more than 100 million nerve cells. Scientists think that these nerve cells are your second brain. They can determine your mood and emotions. Thus the phrase, "follow your gut." When something extremely cold touches the roof of your mouth, be it ice cream or icy winter air, the nerve center located there panics. It starts a nerve reaction, and it swells blood vessels in the head trying to heat the brain. But then, why don't your eyes get cold when it's freezing? There are no temperature receptor cells there. Plus, the biggest part of the eyeball is inside the skull and gets warmed by the blood flow inside. The largest tire producer in the world is Lego. This company manufactures more than 300 million tiny tires every year. Facebook once created 2 AI chatbots that could talk to each other. But the chatbots started to communicate in a language no one but them could understand. The experiment had to be shut down after that. The mimic octopus has a perfect defense system. It can not only change its color, but also take the shapes of other sea creatures. Birds fly in V formations to save their energy. Those flying in the front row create air swirls with their wings, and birds flying in the back catch these swirls and don't need to spend so much energy. This formation also helps all the birds to see the leader. The M100 galaxy is 55 million light-years away from Earth. This is a mind-boggling distance. If someone from that galaxy was looking at our planet right now, they would see the extinction of dinosaurs. And finally, Point Nemo in the South Pacific Ocean lies so far away from any landmass that the closest human beings are often astronauts on board the International Space Station, and only when it passes overhead. No wonder another name of this point is the pole of inaccessibility. Hey, if you learned something new today, then give the video a like and share it with a friend. And here are some other cool videos I think you'll enjoy. Just click to the left or right, and remember, stay on the bright side of life.